I'll be moderating for today so that all of our executive and council members can participate in the discussion. Before we start, I'll ask all of our council members to stand up so that I can point them out to you in case you see them on campus and want to ask them questions that you can. So Graham is right here in the front, and he's our arts commissioner. Shannon, who's taking a picture in the corner, is the part-time mature commissioner. Leandra is the women's commissioner. Stefan is behind the camera. Oh, Krista's Krista is the education commissioner. And in addition to that, if you come into our Busu office, I'd like to introduce some of our staff, as they will be your familiar faces. Yes, stand up. So Krista is the one in front, wave. And you have Ashley, Suze, Nicole, Joe, and Alexandra, who's refusing to stand. Right there. And of course, next to me we have our Busu executive. So right next to me is Jonathan Keane, Vice President Internal, Deandra Tuzignan, President, and Kelsey McDonald, who is your Vice President External. So for today, we're going to break up this forum into two different sections so that we can sort of focus in on a couple of different issues. So the first portion will be discussions about the collective bargaining, things we've heard, things that we've researched to give you some more information about why this strike is happening and what are the key issues that are still being debated at the table. And then secondly, any questions or concerns that you might have about the details of what it means to be a student during a strike, what happens if you cross the picket line, those kinds of things. So unless there's any objections, that's the method we will use. During the forum, if anyone has any questions and can't yell to be heard, you're welcome to come up to the microphone up front here and speak into it. Through the meeting, you might notice we have a few media outlets that are here taking pictures or might be interviewing. If you ask a question, it might be recorded in the media, but your name won't be recorded unless you give permission. So just so people feel comfortable moving forward with that kind of process. Are there any concerns from people about that and their ability to participate? Awesome. So we're going to get started. The first issue is, as I mentioned, talking about the details of what's being discussed in the collective bargaining. So in our office we've done a variety of research, and so maybe we'll start out with that as the first topic that we'll talk about. And then if people want to ask questions or weigh in on the issues, you'll be more than welcome to do so.
Okay, so over the last couple of weeks there's been, students have come to the student union and question answer periods with lots of different questions. One of the main ones, I'm sure a lot of students have heard, that this time around the administration has hired a lawyer to be chief negotiator for their bargaining unit. And we have asked the administration several times how much the lawyer has been getting paid throughout the process. At the question and answer, Dr. Poff responded that it was irrelevant, but obviously we feel differently in regards to how much the lawyer is getting paid. And just to make it clear, this has never happened before in the past. And so we did research, we called the firm and found out that he gets paid $330 an hour So and he's from Winnipeg. So let's make that clear. So there's travel and accommodations and food. But we have been told that he doesn't spend a lot of money on food. He's frugal on food. Okay, sorry. Okay, I'm trying to be funny. Okay, and so a few other things that have been brought up is Dr. Poff's salary, because the reality is that when we're in collective bargaining negotiations, it's about money, right? We pay tuition, we're students, we have funding from the government, and every year we seem to be in a budget crisis. And anyone who was here last year knows that we were in a budgetary crisis, and a lot of core classes in science were being threatened, and students were outraged about this, and we had a forum at that time. And you know, we have priorities as an institution. Obviously, chief negotiator staff is also a priority, but also students are wanting to know how much Dr. Poff gets paid in relation to other other university presidents, and we looked and did research on other small universities. So we have a comparison here. So Trent University has 8,300 students. The president gets paid $19.66 per student when it's calculated out. Nipissing University, 3,510 students. The president gets paid $40 per student. University of Lethbridge, 7,000 students. The president gets paid $62 a student. UNBC, 4,132 students, $67.12 a student. Brandon University, 3,000 students, $83.33 per student. And so the reason why we find this is important is because when we come into a strike situation, there is a lot of discussion about salary increases and the faculty demanding salary increases and how it's completely unwarranted. But that is not the biggest issue right now at the bargaining table, and just to give students some perspective.
Okay, so just keeping in the same thought about salaries and stuff like that, I just want to, first of all, I just wanted to make it clear that while salaries are obviously an important part of the negotiations, there's a lot of other things on the table that are important for faculty, they're important for students, and for the health and well-being of our institution. But I just wanted to comment specifically on some of the salary issues, since I think that's been the thing that's been most discussed by students. So we just wanted to make it clear what the administration came to the table with in the beginning was a 0, 0, and 2.8% increase in the third year, which they claimed was voluntarily mandated by the government of Manitoba. We haven't had any sort of evidence that this mandate has actually occurred. They've told us, they've told both us and Busu, sorry, Bupa? Sorry, I got that right. We haven't got a lot of sleep, but we're making do. They've told BUFA that they talked to a government official who told them that this was the mandate and it's voluntary, so they weren't going to legislate it, but they won't tell us who said that or if there's any kind of written record. They just said that they insisted that this was said, and that's what they're going with. We actually got in touch with the Minister for Post-Secondary Education in the province, Aaron Selby, who said that this was in fact not true, that they wouldn't have a mandate for a 0%, 0%, and a 2.8% increase. So obviously there's a huge divergence in terms of what the actual mandate is. Regardless, there's no real mandate for this. And I'm sure if some of you have been following any of BUFA's bulletins or following the media, a 0% increase doesn't just mean that the salary stays the same. It might appear to stay the same, but when you factor in inflation and the fact that the administration is also asking for increased pension contributions, they're actually looking at a reduction in real income. The number that BUFA's come up with is 14% over those 3 years. Now, the 14%, that's not obviously, there's a number of different numbers that you can come up with based on different inflation rates and stuff like that. And none of us, most of us aren't economists or anything like that. But just to know that that what the administration is proposing right now does in fact equal out to be a decrease in real pay, just as long as we put it over that.
I guess, just in regards to salary again, I'm sure that you folks have heard a lot about pension. It's another big issue, something that we talked about back in April when we were dealing with the budget, and the fact that the pension lost a lot of money in 2008 with the financial crisis. And as a university, we were having to make up a lot of that cost to the faculty's pensions. Now in collective bargaining, what's been on the table is, the reason why this is relevant is that it affects the real income as well. Because the administration is wanting to pull back their contributions to the faculty's pension plans while increasing their contributions to the pension plans. So not only are they asking for 0, 0, and 2.8%, but they're asking faculty to increase their pension contributions from 7.5, which was matched by the administration at 7.5%, up to 9%, while reducing the administration's pension contributions. So,
sorry, what was the question?
How much did reducing like the administration?
this we don't know. And I want to make it clear that these things are constantly changing, right, at the bargaining table. So these are things that are being negotiated, and these were some of the original stances, or some of the main stances that were taken a couple of days ago. We're not sure what got moved on last night in regards to these issues, but these were the things that were holding up collective bargaining negotiations over the last week, and a month, 2 months, 3 months.
Just to add to that, that it was indicated to us that last night the main thing that was dealt with was like wording issues, not necessarily like the big hard-hitting issues. But Ben, did you have a question? Okay, perfect.
No, I just wanted, so, and again, just to make it clear that during a strike situation, there's a lot of talk about salaries and pensions, but these are not the only issues right now. And so we can go into some of the other issues that are going to directly affect students.
Okay, Ben?
But some of the interpretation of the communications, like for give rise to lead some to the work that she's encouraging professors or faculty also to am I getting
No, you're good. Yeah, we're going to discuss that in the second part. So the question for people is that the email that Dr. Poff sent out earlier alludes to the fact that she's encouraging faculty to cross the picket line next week in order to offer some classes. So we'll discuss that a little bit later, because I think it's a pretty big discussion for us to have for sure, and like how that plays in with students next week and what sort of dilemmas people have. Are there any questions specifically about the bargaining or things that you've heard that students want to address, or if we might have the answer? If we don't, we'd be more than happy to look into it.
I heard another issue in the collective bargaining agreement was that they were looking at not allowing, I don't know the exact wording or how it works, but that they were looking at having more professors have to have a PhD to be able to have secure employment. And I'm just, I don't actually know all the details, but just if you could allude more to that or articulate something like that.
Yeah, that was an issue that absolutely came up in our student forum that Dr. Poff held a week and a half ago or whenever it was. So our executive can definitely fill you in on that.
So there's a few things to that question. So one of the, I think it's Jackie, highlighted that they were increasing the requirements for people to get tenure track positions so that they needed to have a PhD. This isn't something that's been done in the past here at Brown University, and it's not something that's done at a lot of institutions across Canada, because as we all know, we have several professors that don't have PhDs, but are in fact some of the best teachers that we have. And so having a PhD doesn't necessarily mean that they are a top-notch scholar or that they are going to be a better professor. And furthermore, so many professors come in and work at a university while they're working on their PhD. And this is an important issue for us, because as students, we want to make sure that we have the best quality professors staying at our institution, not necessarily those just with PhDs.
So just because I realized that there were like 10 people at Dr. Poff's thing, another thing that she brought up with the PhDs is saying that only professors who have PhDs can get grant money, and I guess she thinks that if every professor now has a PhD, we're going to get a lot more money. My issue with that is that we don't even have good research facilities to actually use that money. Secondly, another issue that I had with her Q&A session, my first question I asked was about the lawyer and why she hired him, and she told me that she actually didn't know how much she was paying him, which I guess she's found out now.
She didn't know, the lawyer told us as well.
Okay. And my other issue is that I don't. Sorry. Can you hear me now? Okay. My other issue was with her wording of satisfactory versus unsatisfactory professors. And her idea is that if you're a satisfactory professor, which means you do more research and publications, you can teach fewer classes. I'm fine with that. My issue is that she doesn't know how she's going to pay for it. And when I asked her what would happen if the government can't give money, she actually said that she would look at getting rid of smaller classes. So, huge issue for me. That was all I had.
And just, I think that someone should add to that, because what you're also referring to is the fact about the research requirements, and that in the event that the professor was satisfactory, then they would be able to drop one of their courses to be able to do more research. So.
Yeah, that's another big issue that has come up. They're asking professors to decrease their course load from 18 credit hours to 15 credit hours in order to do more research. The big issue with that, as many of you know, is that there's 3 across 2 departments. So they're already taking on more than they should be, and they're going to now be asked to cut down, which will then reduce the amount of classes offered. And as you know, there's not, like sometimes you're waiting a couple of years to take the course, and it can make everyone graduate later.
Go ahead.
There's also another thing about they have to submit research papers, a certain amount of research papers every year. And also on that as well, that they have to submit research papers to journals within their disciplinary, and that they don't count. Because
the proper language that's been used is refereed articles. So it's not just published articles or published works, it's refereed works, which is a higher standard than just a publication. And so that's something that they're going to be required to do. I don't know if that clarifies.
Does that answer your question? So
well, no, the thing I was saying from that is that they're saying that they have to submit it to their own disciplinary. I know there's a lot of faculty that have cross-disciplinary. I know one of the departments in particular submits a lot of stuff to a bio journal rather than just a journal. Those papers are not going to count.
I think the overall point on these research requirements, whether what you're highlighting as well, that I'm not too sure about that, to be completely honest with you, whether it's stipulated in their agreement that it must be within the discipline. But the biggest problem with that is that these research requirements are going to impact us. Let's be realistic, if our professors research more, it does benefit us. Because, you know, we're students, we also do research, our professors are constantly contributing to the disciplines that we study. But right now, we are under-resourced as a small liberal arts institution, and placing large research requirements on our professors and reducing their workloads are going to affect students. And if we don't have the funds to hire adequate sessionals to deal with these reductions in course loads, then we are going to suffer.
Some of the departments in arts in particular I know better, like religion and philosophy. If they're forced to cut down to 15, like how are they even going to be able to offer a major in these programs? Like, it might, you know, if they really go ahead with that, they'll probably end up being minor only or something like that.
Yeah, I mean that clearly is the implication of this. If this goes ahead and we do have lower our teaching requirements for professors, there are going to be obviously departments that are severely affected, and they are going to be the smaller departments that we are proud to offer here. But unfortunately, if this happens, it's going to be it's difficult as it is. We all know that. We were here last year around budget time, and we had a forum, and we had about 60 students that show up to that, and we know that every year it's difficult to get those core classes taught. So when we're adding these requirements, it puts too much of a burden and a strain, and we're simply not getting the support through government funding right now to do that. So it's irresponsible for us, I think, in my opinion, and I think in our opinion, that we go ahead with this without first securing funding, so it's not affecting students.
Are there other concerns along those lines? Yes.
drop because of the change in like faculty is teaching? Will there be changes to the course calendar as well as like actual courses between these problems?
It's probably a really good question.
I would suppose that would be the case. I mean, if we don't have people teaching classes and we don't have sessionals to fill those spots and the funding to pay sessionals, then yes, the courses might not be removed from the calendar because we have a lot of courses in the calendar that aren't removed, that aren't offered, but they definitely won't be offered on a regular basis.
Just as we move forward, I just want to make sure that everyone in the room knows that like everything that you guys are highlighting as concerns that you have are things that people who are on BUSU Council and are in the office are taking seriously and will be trying to advocate on your behalf on those issues. So if there are things that we don't necessarily know the answers to, it's, well, in some cases probably because they're not very logical ideas that the administration always has, but just know that everything that you're saying is appreciated for feedback. Kristen?
Can you use the microphone when you talk?
So Chris is asking, because Dr. Poff referenced that at other universities that she worked at, she did an unpaid overload to help out students with courses that couldn't be offered every year, and so she sort of alluded to that was one of the options for faculty.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add to that other than the fact that that clearly was the implication that professors would be expected to actually take on an extra course load or taking on thesis students or things like that without getting properly compensated for that. And that's a huge problem, obviously. When we have faculty members that are doing work that they're not getting paid for, it's a problem for them, but it's also a problem for us, because can we count on the quality of our education being the same if professors are not getting compensated? I don't think we can. So that's going to directly affect the quality of education that we receive. So I don't think that that's a solution at all. And just to finally just touch upon once again the sessional problem, I think this has been alluded to, but I just want to make it clear. Being in Brandon and being in such a small community, it's very, very hard to attract sessional professors. We don't have a pool of spare PhDs around in our community that can just step in and fill classes. So it's very, very difficult. And there's also a disadvantage to relying on sessionals constantly to fill classes. I know we've all had sessionals that are very quality teachers that we love and support. But the reality is that sessional teachers are only here for so long. And they have to move on and try to find jobs that are more sustainable for them. So for students to have full-time tenured professors that are invested in our education for the long term and invested in the community, that's a big benefit.
Something about distance courses?
Sorry, do you know if they're going to make maybe a greater allowance for distance courses if
Like throughout the basket? Or like through other universities?
Yeah.
There's been, actually, and this is something that we've talked to the Faculty Association about, and it's actually a really big issue right now in collective bargaining, is that the administration is wanting to open up the collective agreement so that we can offer, or we can take more distance ed courses, and we can do more courses on the internet, and this is a way to move away from small class sizes, and so minimizing physical contact with professors. And this is a really big concern for students too. Like, even though we have small class sizes, I like to have a professor in my classroom, and I'm sure a lot of us do, and moving as an institution towards more distance ed and classes that are online is concerning for students.
You're also paying twice as much when you do a distance class. When you take a class from Athabasca, for instance, you're paying twice as much to get an education, not with a real person. And you know, obviously there's a value to having distance ed, but relying on that more and in the place of face-to-face interaction is not right.
and just to be clear, like in addition to Athabasca, the administration is trying to offer courses by distance at Brandon University. So like not so that we contract out, but that our courses have the ability to become internet-based courses, which is also a concern. Another thing that I wanted, if there's no other questions about that.
Professional instructors compared to faculty, what is it like? I know that you say that a lot of our instructors are settles.
Which department? Teachers.
Well, I
Okay. Music?
we have a lot of central, but what is it like for other faculty?
Unfortunately, we don't have that answer to that at this time, but it's definitely showing us a problem. Is that they're just replacing positions with sessional professors. One professor in particular has been here for 5 years as a sessional professor. If for 5 years that's not sessional, they should create a position of it. They basically have, but then they don't have to give the same benefits and pay as they do non-sessional. So I know that didn't answer your question, but I wanted to add that on to it.
It's a really big concern. I mean, sessional professors are paid very minimal for their work, and when you have professors that are staying here for 5 years as sessional professors that don't have the full benefits as tenure track positions as well. Yeah. Another important thing that has been one of the biggest issues in recent days in collective bargaining is the fact that the administration right now is trying to change the hiring requirements for professors totally out of the collective agreement. And then in addition to that, so upping the standards, but in addition to that, making it so that the administration has say to hire anyone who is not qualified, but only the administration. So they have standards that professors need to uphold, and then as an administration, they can say, you don't meet those standards, we've decided to hire you anyways. So they have full discretion to bypass those standards and hire a professor, or maybe, professor that isn't qualified. And so this is a really big concern for the faculty union, as well as for students, because we have standards as an institution, and as we've already talked, some of those standards have implications for us as well. But we would like these standards to be upheld and not bypassed at the discretion of the president at the time.
So when people have questions and they can't go to the microphone, I know it's tedious, but in most cases I'm going to repeat them because I know people in different corners of the room can't hear. So next question.
Just a point of clarification, do you know which office will control the hiring of unqualified faculty? Will it be the President's office?
Did people over there hear that? The question was whether, which office in the university would have the control of hiring unqualified professors.
It would be the president's office. It would be the president and probably in consultation with the vice president, so the executive administration.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just right now, or previously, wasn't hiring largely in control of the department? Or is the department in consultation with the administration?
So the question is, when we hire professors right now, doesn't the department, or in consultation with the department, a committee, do the hiring?
Right now, as it stands, the faculty union does all the hiring. There's representatives from different places within the university, but it's under the jurisdiction of the faculty union. But the administration was wanting to actually shift that responsibility over to faculty councils. So that was another thing that was on the collective bargaining table. So taking it out of the hands of the union and putting it into the hands of the faculty councils.
How is it done at most universities? You know?
How is it done at most universities?
I believe it's through the union, but I'm not entirely sure what we can talk about.
Ben?
But is it not true that the president has the final say?
Currently?
Sorry.
So yeah, you asked if is it true that the president has final say? She does in overhiring at this time.
Okay.
question in the corner. How do we show support for whatever? Yeah, that's a good question. They can answer that.
Okay, this is a bit of a difficult question, obviously, because people will show support in different ways. Obviously, you know, writing your opinion, writing papers and things like that is always a viable option. In terms of an actual strike, if you are in favor of a BUFA of the faculty, probably the best and most effective way to show your support is actually to get on the picket line with them, and that's sort of showing the solidarity with them, and that can be a really powerful display there. Another thing is just simply not crossing the picket line, doing work from home. If you were to show support for the other side of things, for the administration, I'm going to pass this over.
I suppose you would cross the picket line. You know, it's a really tough situation, and again, students, we're caught in the middle, right? Yeah, I don't really know how you would necessarily show support for the administration, but
like in some cases, I suppose you could write a letter to the editor. In either case, you can get active in those sorts of ways. I suppose you could go into the president's office and ask her if you could bring her coffee or something. Like,
I remember her saying something about open office hours. I haven't heard about it, but I guess you could stop by.
another important thing that I'd like to let you folks know is that in consultation with the faculty union, they've made it clear that they understand the situation that students are in and that they support students crossing the picket line to come on campus to study and to continue to do their schoolwork, not necessarily go to classes that are being offered by some faculty, and again, we'll get to that. And also that this building that we're in right now, which is the Student Center, KDC, is your student-owned building, is the neutral spot. So coming into this building isn't necessarily crossing the picket line, and a lot of the faculty are using it to go to the washroom because it's the closest place that they can go to the washroom. So this place is neutral, and faculty they do support you crossing the picket line, and a lot of people live in residence, so this is just the reality of the situation.
So if there's no other, maybe I'll have a call to see if there's any other questions about collective bargaining.
The number of 37% has been tossed around, and I wanted to know what that number was for.
Well, the question is, the number 37% has been tossed around. Just
with regards to salaries.
With regards to the faculty's request for salary. Is that what? Okay.
I just talked to Frank. He said that what it's actually going to cost the administration to get for what they want is 37% more. That's what he says.
I'll just reiterate what Chris has said, just that the administration is indicating that if they gave the faculty what they want, that it would cost 37% to the university over 3 years.
Yeah, and I mean, we can't take too much stock in that number, I don't think. Obviously, there's a different number when the administration is trying to impose their 0% to 2.8% increase. That the faculty would actually be taking 14% reduction.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the 37% increase, I'm a little bit skeptical about what that says in terms of, obviously, any increase that they're talking about, you have to look at what the inflation is every year and take that out. You also have to look at what the administration is asking in terms of their pension contributions. Like, there's a possibility that maybe the 37% increase was what was started out with, and not taking into consideration inflation or pension contributions or anything like that. But we can't really comment any further than that.
I just want to throw out one other thing. Also, okay, so we're looking at the cost of Grant Mitchell, which is the lawyer, as well as Dr. Poff's yearly wage increase that she's supposed to get. And I'll have you folks know that we've requested copy of her employment contract to see if these raises are actually in her employment contract. We're waiting to get that back so we can tell you whether she is supposed to get a raise every year.
You should indicate that it was denied, and so we've had to FIPA request it.
Yeah, we've had to FIPA request it from the President's office, which is, that means, okay, FIPA is the Freedom
of Information Protection Policy. So you have to submit a request, and then if under the policy, which one of our offices in Alexandra did a lot of research, in a public institution you have every right to request a copy of a public individual's contract. So obviously she would have every right to black out her date of birth or any social insurance number or anything that's personal, but everything else in the contract is public, and so it's sort of the process that you go through if they deny you information that should be public information, considering this is a public institution.
Okay, so what I was getting at, so if we look at some of the things that they're offering at the table right now, the administration, so there's market supplements for professors in nursing. The administration wants to hire another vice president, and this is something that's been discussed at the Board of Governors. And so we already have two, but they want to hire another vice president, which is about $250,000 a year. The administration hired consultants for collective negotiations this time, and Mr. Mitchell as well, so the lawyer. And all this tallied up comes to about 3% of the university's total salary bill for the faculty. So if we're talking about budgetary issues, we're talking about priorities here. The administration hired consultants, they hired a lawyer, and they're looking at hiring another administrative position.
Ben? How much did the consultants cost?
We have yet to get that information. We requested it.
However, it's estimated that last week at $330 an hour, Grant Mitchell cost about $100,000.
Say it again.
Sorry. At $330 an hour, it's estimated that Grant Mitchell cost $100,000 last week.
Like not one week, but
as of last week.
Yes.
What does the administration actually do that they need yet another vice president?
And now I have to repeat it. What does the administration do that they actually need another vice president? And then the other half of the room got it. No response.
No response.
To clear that question up a little bit, do we know what the VP's title is going to be, or any duties for a new VP?
What will the VP's title be? We'll come back to that question because we'll look it up here. Ben?
Vice presidents, do they not also get benefits in addition to the $250,000?
Do the vice presidents get benefits in addition to the $250,000?
Do they not also get benefits in addition to the salary?
Yes, but just to be clear, they don't make $250,000.
Yeah, that's
just make sure we're clear.
That's my fault. The new vice president won't be $250,000. That's what Dr. Toff makes. My bad.
260.
Yeah, she makes 260.
Yeah.
But do they have benefits in addition to their salaries?
Yes.
I don't know that they have living allowances, or they don't get to live in the president's house for free like Dr. Pop does, or she doesn't they don't get car allowances or anything like that.
They're in the same pension plan actually. So when they're asking faculty to increase their pension contributions, the administrators are actually benefiting from that. Yeah, I mean we're not sure about the specifics, but I'm sure that there are sort of standard benefits for the industry.
Yeah, if it's okay, we'll take one last question and then we're going to move on to the other section of this meeting. Go ahead.
I don't think you guys can answer this right now, but when you get her contract, in 2009 on public record it says that she was making just over $100,000. How has she managed to increase her salary in 2 years by that much?
So in 2009, there's a Public Disclosure Act or a document that's released every year with all of the administrator salaries that are above $50,000 or $60,000. And so the question is, how does she make $100,000 one year and then $260,000 the next year? And I think that the answer to that is that she started partway through that year. Unless anyone else knows a different answer.
It's when her term started.
Yeah, so she worked part of that year, so. Okay, so the second portion of this forum that we wanted to have was to discuss any issues or concerns that students have regarding the fact that there is a strike, the fact that to come into this building, students obviously had to walk past the picket line, what it means, whether you can check your email, if you can talk to professors, and probably the most heated part of that discussion will be what happens next week in the event that some classes are offered. So do we want to start with the most fun part? What if next week classes are offered? Yeah.
Like, how is that going to affect us? I mean, if some profs continue on as normal, well, you know, barring the weekly off, but, you know, continue on, and then the strike goes for, you know, quite a long period of time, like, say, a month.
So if the strike lasts a month, what happens with professors that decide to teach and those that don't, and what does that mean for us? And maybe I'll just mention as well that this part of the discussion is really valuable to BUSU because we, like right before this meeting right here, we had a meeting with the university administration and the university's $320 an hour lawyer. So we apologize that we cost the university like $150. But the meeting, we had a debate about what sort of situation that puts students into. So how you guys feel about next week is really valuable information for your executive and your council moving forward on how we try and discuss these sorts of things with the university administration next week. So Ben's question.
I mean, we've expressed to the university administration that this is putting students in a very, very difficult situation. Because not only are we out of class now, but with some faculty offering classes, we're being placed in a position where we have to decide whether we are going to cross the picket line to go to class, or whether we're going to not cross the picket line because we support the faculty, and then in that case, not be on fair standing with some students that do cross the picket line. And this will create hostility between professors, between students and professors, and between students and students. Because frankly, there's going to be some students that don't want to cross the picket line and could possibly be penalized for this.
I mean, obviously this is a judgment call, but do you think, like, I can't imagine any of the professors and the faculty union would actually be, you know, crossing the picket line themselves to go teach courses. So I'm assuming that would just be for, like, some of the education profs, a few of the other profs that I don't think are even part of the union. I assume they'd probably be the only ones that could put on the class.
So the question is, like alluding to the fact that there's, I guess, an assumption that faculty members won't cross the picket line, so it would be people that aren't members of BUFA that would be teaching.
Yeah, well, members, any teachers who aren't members of BUFA are not obligated to strike, and they can continue working, and that's fine. There are some situations that are a bit difficult with health studies and education where classes are held outside of the university, so the picket line doesn't have to be crossed. Those are all very very complicated judgment calls. But from the email that came out from Dr. Poff today, and from communications that we've had with senior administration, the implication of them canceling classes up until Friday and then allowing certain classes to resume is that they're trying to get members of BUFA who are not in support of the strike to come on to the campus and teach classes. And we know that there's a strike vote, and there were some people, sorry, who voted against the strike, who were faculty members. And they're being invited onto campus to teach classes. Now, where we have a problem with that, like Deandra was saying, is it puts students in a very precarious situation, because you have to either choose to either attend your class and get that extra time of learning and contact time with your professor. But if you do that, you're also sending a clear message that you don't support the rest of the faculty that are still striking. This is not an ideal situation whatsoever. We all understand that work stoppages are unfortunate, and they suck for students. But what's going to suck even more is if we return after this and we have faculty members that have hostility towards each other, and we have students that have hostility towards each other, and vice versa, students to faculty. So we don't think that this is a very effective way to get a fair deal done, and we're really, we're pissed off, to be frank, that students are being used in this way. That we're trying to divide. There's, it's a very clear divide and conquer tactic on the Brandon University Faculty Association. We're getting caught up in the middle of it, and we don't appreciate it. Any feedback that we can get on that is obviously valuable too.
Okay, sorry, I just have.
Yeah, I was just wondering, will we receive an email, say Sunday night, of which classes will be offered on Monday, or will that be like Monday morning? We'll find out if we need to come to school or not. Like if some faculty members do decide to return to classes.
Question is, on Sunday night, will people receive an email indicating which courses or classes are going to be running? And probably the easiest answer is that we don't know, but we can definitely find out for you if they proceed in this fashion. Ben?
Just one question. In the last strike, the PTA, Brandon Teachers Association, voted to support the Brandon Faculty Association, the Brandon University Faculty Association, and therefore they would not allow the student teachers to go, but they would not qualify as student teachers for the purpose of the apprenticeship. How is that going to impact things now with the university encouraging some professors to apply to the PTA
Okay, so the question is, in 2008, the Brandon Teachers Association voted in favor of supporting the Brandon University Faculty Association, and that at the same time, students who are in education were not insured through the Manitoba Teachers Society to go student teach, and instead had to volunteer at the schools that they were placed at. And what does that mean for education students this time? Yeah, the practicum is like this week, or next week.
So
Monday.
We have been in contact with the Manitoba's Teachers Society, as well as the Dean of Education here at Brandon University. Manitoba Teachers Society has made it clear that they do support the faculty strike, and that the student teachers would actually just be considered volunteers according to them, when they go do their practicum. In talking with the dean, however, he has insisted, and he will be sending an email to any education students that are here within the next, I don't know what time, he said right after 12, which will clearly lay out the procedures for the coming days. But that education students will actually go to their student teaching placements, and if faculty decide not to cross the picket line, he will be the advisor for those students going into the classroom. And that, in fact, they will be insured as student teachers because he will be your advisor.
And maybe just to add to that a bit, like what happened last time really had not much to do with the Brandon Teachers Society supporting BUFA. It's more that if you don't have an advisor and you're going into student teaching, then you can't be insured through the Manitoba Teachers Society. So that's more the situation. So in this case, the dean has already indicated that regardless of whether or not any professors come back, that all education students will be able to go student teaching because he will act as their advisor in this situation.
Okay, so I received an email from Dr. Foss saying that classes are canceled from the 12th to the 14th, and that was because they needed some, I don't know, something about the holiday weekend or something that their committee had to regroup or whatever. But I'm wondering, so are they not negotiating during those days? Is that how she knows classes are still going to be canceled as of Friday? Or why is classes definitely canceled on Friday?
So the question is, based on the email that, has everyone received the email through their student account? Yeah? No? Oh. There's definitely some problems with the university email system today. Like when we sent our email at like 5 a.m. this morning, people didn't get it until like 7 or 8. So definitely check your email and read all the emails you're getting. But the question was, in the email it indicated that classes would be canceled for the remainder of this week, alluding to something to do with people being tired. I don't know. Anyways, and the question is, are they not negotiating any further, or how does Dr. Ploff know that they won't come to an agreement before the end of the week that would allow you to return to class before then?
They're actually continuing collective bargaining today. It's definitely been made a priority to find a speedy resolution, so collective bargaining won't cease.
And in regards to the classes being canceled, we received the same email, and I would suggest that she's indicating that classes are canceled until Friday, so there's no classes even if there is a resolution. So as president of the university, she's saying there's no classes until Friday, or until Monday, I suppose. And so that's the direction that she's decided to take. So if they do come to a resolution tomorrow or today, then I suppose we don't go to class on Friday.
I have a question about students who are employed at the university and what the new student opinion is on that.
So the question is, for students that are employed by the university, what BUFA and BUSU's opinion is on that?
So students employed by the university are under a different union. Is it MGU? No? Pardon me? Yeah. Not markers, right? No, I know. Markers are not unionized. So students, that's a really, really tough situation to be in, because now you have no one to mark for. Or unless they go back to class and you are requested to continue to mark across the picket line. That's, I don't really know.
And I think it also, like in some ways it depends as well, like what kind of job it is. So in many cases, members, not necessarily students, but members of the university, as you can see, if you've been on campus today, food services is open, student services is open, all of the individuals that are not faculty members are here at work. And so for many of them, the way that they continue is that they come to work every day. From what I can tell, there might be a few people that choose not to cross the picket line, but many of them take their coffee break or their lunch break and go and walk the picket line with the faculty if they do support the faculty in that case. So that's sort of one of the options that a student who's employed by the university would have. The BUSU has met with the Faculty Association and asked them what they felt about our office being open, because we have students that we employ and we didn't want, whether we supported the faculty or not, that there to be animosity towards the students' union. And they indicated that, you know, regardless, that they know that we provide a service to students and that they wanted services to continue to be provided for students. So, like our council will be meeting today to discuss that, but moving forward, I think like it's one of those decisions that each individual sort of has to make a decision on, and I don't know if that helps your question. Yeah. Other questions?
What happens for midterms if our prof decides the whole class and in that time frame of midterm is?
So next week?
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens in the event that a midterm, which is scheduled for next week, takes place because a faculty member crosses the picket line?
Everyone that we've talked to, members of senior administration and faculty members have all told us that they're going to do whatever possible to make sure that students aren't negatively affected by the process. Of course, if a professor is crossing the picket line and offering a class and conducting a midterm while there is a strike, it's a difficult situation. I would just like to maybe remind people that they do have a right to not come if there is a strike and they don't want to cross the picket line and support the faculty member. And we've gotten every indication that students who do so will not be penalized. And we're here obviously to make sure that it doesn't happen. Whatever the case may be, we'll make sure that students aren't penalized because of this. We're not directly involved in these negotiations. We've been kind of pulled in, but we'll make sure that students aren't. We'll try our hardest.
Maybe for Busu's benefit, I wonder if people around the room here, how they're feeling about next week. Like in the event that you have a professor that's offering a course that you are taking, whether or not you would plan on crossing the picket line to go to class. And like no judgment either way, but like we need to be able to represent you guys at to the administration and to BUFA, and so it would be if people are comfortable indicating in some sort of way how they feel. Would people be comfortable indicating by like show of hands? A couple nods? Okay. No. Yeah.
Would there be any consequences for students who didn't show up because of marks or
So the question is, would there be any ramifications of students who didn't show up in terms of marks or midterms or those kinds of things? And people can answer.
Dr. Pop hasn't developed her plans on how she's going to go about it, but she has assured us that she's going to protect the students. But we don't know how that's going to happen or will this happen.
This is the mess that we're trying to avoid. The fact that she's saying that she's going to protect students, but we don't know how that's going to be ensured if midterms are conducted, if assignments are going to be called to be due next week, and some students don't want to cross the picket line. It's not fair for students to be put in this position. But how do you guys feel about it? There's a question of that.
What happens if the professor changes their course lately and puts everything on the Moodle website, and then she tells you just look at the Moodle website and just do the work on there? What happens?
What happens if a professor changes their syllabus and puts everything onto the Moodle website and then says, do this work?
Once they give a syllabus, they can't change it. I remember it's all things.
That's a tough question to answer. I mean, as a student union, we've continually been telling students to try to keep up with your coursework in the event of a strike. So follow your course syllabuses and do as much work as you can on your own. If you are getting some direction from Moodle, because there is not a lockout, Moodle is not shut down, so the faculty can access Moodle. If they choose to direct you through Moodle, that's their decision. Again, if they're making assignments due and some students choose not to do those assignments, that's at their discretion. But we do suggest that you continue to do as much as you can on your own if you choose not to cross the picket line and go to class.
I remember seeing on the Busu clipboard something that a prof can't change a syllabus once it's handed out. Is that different in the case of a strike so that they can change it?
So, like one of our student rights is that within the first day of class that you're given a copy of a syllabus, and that is sort of the contract between students and the professor about what will be covered in that course and timeframes, etc. So in the event of a strike, what happens to the syllabus?
Well, you can't change the syllabus without getting consent, like doing a vote in the class. But is that with respect to that question?
Yeah.
Because like for clarification, we were a little bit as well kind of iffy about what it meant. Did you mean put the syllabus onto Moodle and
she took away the midterm and put a take-home exam on there and everything like that.
She just changed it.
Has this happened?
Yeah.
So professor put the.
She was preparing the class for the possibility of a strike. She took away. Oh, I hadn't talked to her in a while, so well, like I looked in the Moodle. She's like, take home exam due November 20th. It's like.
So she essentially like assigned you guys strike work.
Yeah.
In lieu of a midterm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take your deeds and figure it out.
Well, I was going to say that she can't do that, or she or he. But in that case, you can actually come to Busu and we'll help you. You actually join Field of Appeals.
BU has no student rights. There are no student rights. There's no
it was just indicated that there's allegedly no student rights, but there are things that are written, like there's not a section that says here are your student rights, but there are things that align in the academic calendar. But like I'm not the expert on the calendar.
Yeah, just in regards to anything like that, as part of my job as the Vice President Internal, I sit on appeals committees, and so if it is necessary, we do encourage you to come to our office and seek out an appeal. This is going to be a bit of a nightmare, I think, for us, but in a good way. I mean, this is our job, this is our function, and we're very happy to help students in whatever situation they need. So if you're at kind of the last resort in that sense and need an appeal, we really encourage you to come to us and get information about that.
I just want to make it clear, sorry, that if there's assignments due while professors are on strike, I do not think you're actually required to hand those in, because that would be essentially canceling the picket line if you didn't want to do that. And they can't penalize you for that. Or we've been told that they're going to protect you. That's, again, us being put in a really hard situation.
But that's one of the things that we will look into for you.
Absolutely.
So I have a question over here.
We have classes that require us to have professional obligations outside of school. So our directors who are currently on strike, will they be able to come back and conduct us for those obligations? It's not a ban for the Constitution High School, the 25th. Crowd will require our safety deputies.
So music students do performances that require a conductor, which is generally the professor, and will they be able to help or come back for those purposes? I don't know that we know the answer, but it's something we can look into.
Yeah, I actually don't know the answer to that. And that's so what Chris has said is that they choose students to conduct those for when the professors do not want to cross the picket line.
But we will check on it for you.
We will check on it for you.
Jackie, did you have a question?
I was just going to say that you were kind of asking our opinion on next week, and I think we've been placed in a really awkward position, certainly as an education student, because there's been no mention of any sort of other option aside from going to student teaching and following this mandate that we haven't really been overly informed about. And in addition to that, we had a professor yesterday give us her home address, asking us to hand in an assignment at her house. And then the dean found out from another student telling the dean, and then I found out from this student being told we weren't to drop it off at this professor's house, but that we shouldn't worry about crossing the picket line, and we had to hand it in at their head office. And so I guess as a student, we're just feeling really, you know, and even like in ed, there's just, we don't know what's going on. No, and I just checked my email again, I don't have anything. And I guess I'm asking you guys, I want to student teach. I have to have a certain number of hours to become a certified teacher and graduate on time. So really, what would you suggest for us to do or to look into, or what, you know,
So a couple of different comments there. So the first is that a professor gave students their home address and told them to drop off an assignment to them. Dean found out, Dean said don't do it, drop it off to the faculty office. And so, like, I guess that's sort of one issue that needs to be discussed here. And then as well, like, what is the sort of the other option for education students, sort of in the event that you don't want to like be seen as crossing the picket line, or like,
yeah, or even just having a dean be your advisor. That's a unique situation for a student to be placed in. And it was kind of alluded to that we would have, if your faculty advisor while you were student teaching was gone, then you would be responsible for like self-reflection on your own experiences while student teaching. And then how is that fair to students who do still have a faculty advisor? And it's just really a very complicated issue. And I'm just wondering how that's helping negotiations if they're trying to make things keep moving along as if nothing's wrong, but there is something wrong. And at what point will administration be held accountable for the money I have spent for my school, for me to be here for a certain quality of education that I believe I have a right and then my professors have a right to provide. So where are they being held accountable in this process in terms of my tuition divided by the number of weeks I'm here and the classes I'm missing? And how are we going to be able to help professors reach a negotiation if they continue to try to make us move? I want to go student teach, and I'm being placed in a really awkward position by the administration right now. And I feel like I don't have very many choices as a student. And I'm not being offered any money to refund me. And what would be the repercussions if I did go student teach? Or if I didn't, I should say. If I didn't go student teach, what would be the repercussions?
That was just really well said. I'm not going to repeat all that because I can't do it, but sort of the first part is, what was the first part? Oh my goodness.
I mean, I think Jackie is essentially just displaying exactly what the problem is here. And it's that a lot of these things we don't have answers to, and this is why we've been pushing the administration to deal with this very differently, because we can't answer any of these problems. And as an education student and as health studies students and psych nursing students, it feels as though you have no option, and that you have to go forth with your practicums because the dean is going to continue to run them. And you know, it doesn't matter if the process isn't going to be adequate, or if you're not, you know, prepared as well as you should be, but you're just required to do that. And we understand that that's very difficult because for you to be certified, you need those contact hours with students. I don't really know what to say in regards to that, other than the fact that, you know, we are being put in a really, really difficult situation, and the administration does need to be held accountable for where we're being placed right now. And the fact that a lot of this burden is the collective negotiations are being shifted off the administration in regards to pressure and onto us. And now we're getting told that we need to decide who we support, and how we express that support, whether it's going to class. And for you, it's difficult, because even if you support the faculty, you feel the need, you need to get your student teaching hours. And if you don't, you've been told that you will not be penalized and that she will protect you. But the reality is, how? Okay? How can we ensure that we will continue to get the quality education that we need? And how can we be ensured that a collective agreement will be, a resolution will be found when it is so mucky? When some faculty are going back to work, some students are going to go to class, some students aren't, and some faculty aren't. How is that going to get us anywhere? And this is the reality of the situation. And I'm sorry that I don't have answers for those questions. And I mean, they can shed light, but this is exactly why we are so aggravated with the situation that we've been put in.
What about being held financially accountable? Our tuition. Is there anything as students that we can do? That would apply pressure directly on administration if they were held accountable for the money we've paid for school.
Can we hold the administration accountable for the lost tuition essentially during the strike? And just the other question, Jackie, about like what is your other option if you are an education student? Like that's something that we should speak to both the administration and the faculty association about what their suggestions are, just to get you some information on that.
I have a question over here.
Okay, we'll just let her people answer this one question about holding them accountable through tuition. First, yeah.
The best way to pressure a speedy resolution is to not become fragmented. Right now, that's the biggest issue with next week, is that it's going to fragment students and faculty, and there is definitely power and strength in numbers. We have teeth if we're together. Last strike, it ended as soon as students got out to the picket line.
Okay, so I'm going to let Chris go because I know he's been studying there for a bit, and then the question from there.
Is my on, or?
Yeah.
Yes, excellent. All right, so it's kind of a theme that's kind of going through here, and I'm really long-winded to talk about it, so I'll get it out nice and fast for you guys. Okay, what John and Kelsey are talking about, what we're talking about as well, is that, yes, that's exactly what's going on. There's a divide and rule going on from the admin and from Dr. Pop. I was in her student question and answer session, I guess, or rather like talk at you session, perhaps. But I had asked the question, hey, as a philosopher, you know, what's going on with the lockout? There was a strike followed by a lockout last time of the strike. What's your stance? Oh, well, I can't say. okay, well, hypothetically, what's the morality of those two options? And she had stated that it would be morally defensible to initiate a lockout in a strike in order to ensure that solidarity between faculty members and students is not eroded. And when we turn around and see, she's attempting to erode the solidarity of faculty and students. So number one, what's going on with that? How can she explain that? And number two, how can she be looking to provide students with protection when she's attempting actively to divide students along these lines and divide faculty? So while these are definitely points, I think it should be asked for directly, hey, what's going on? Because you're saying one thing and you're totally doing another. So why is it exactly that you've chosen to divide faculty? Because that's an active choice she's made. It's not something that's just happened. She's actively trying to do this to create this metal situation which benefits the admin side, right? So I'll sum it up there. But does that make sense?
In our meeting this morning with Dr. Poff, these were the things that we brought to the table. And Kelsey asked a very important question when Dr. Poff said that this was a moral principled stance, that she was not going to lock out faculty. And Kelsey said, what principle and what moral? Because this is only affecting students. It's not beneficial for anybody but the administration. And there was no response to that. And so we've asked that question. How is this beneficial at all? And they said, are you guys asking us for a lockout? And we said, yes. Because we don't want students to be treated unfairly. It's not that we're against, or that we're for locking out employees, but it's that we do not want to be in this situation.
So there's a question over here. Hey.
Okay, I'm still a member of a teachers union, and I have a question. If you could provide for the ed teachers, as well as for the health students, could you provide them with a meeting between the union of teachers and union of, say, nurses? Because I think that my union would look poorly upon me if I crossed a picket line, regardless of which union was represented. And as student teachers, that's an awful position to be in, to choose between getting education in order to be a teacher and to have to go against a union, which in the future the rest of their coworkers will look poorly upon. Are you able to provide them with that kind of forum?
Just before you go, what's the name of the nurses union? Do you know what it's called?
No, I don't.
Okay, we'll look into it, but I think that's a great idea. Like, people, yeah, so we will work on that. And then.
That we're asking you guys, notice the fact that you guys are unable to answer, but we asked
So the question is whether or not we, as the Students' Union, can organize a forum in which students could speak directly to the university administration or Dr. Poff. And we have prepared an answer for that. We invited the administration to come down today, Dr. Poff, and to address the students after we had completed our student portion of the forum. And they refused to return our phone call on that issue. We also likewise invited the Faculty Association. They agreed to come, and then after they met until 5 a.m. this morning, the faculty said that they'd be more than willing to come down tomorrow and meet with students, but that the reality is that the negotiating team only had between like 9 a.m. this morning, 10 a.m. after they were done doing their picket shift, and 4 p.m. this afternoon when they had to go into negotiations again. So they wanted to make sure that they had a good rest so that they would be coherent at the negotiating table. So, in saying that, maybe like as a really quick show of hands, who would be interested in coming down and attending a forum tomorrow in which both the administration and the faculty separately would be able to answer questions? We will, the faculty, we can promise you, has already committed to it, so that's good. We will invite the administration and ask them to come down. And we will put pressure there, but if they don't come, there's not much we can do about it. Okay, sorry, question here and then.
Just a question about the FAQs that were released by Dr. Pop this morning in regards to the tuition. Last time you guys struck, they extended the withdrawal dates so that you could get a refund for those who decided to drop out. And this time she said that absolutely nobody was getting any money back. Is there any way that BUSU can put pressure on to extend that date so you can at least get 50% back?
Yeah. The question was about whether or not BUSU can put pressure on the university administration to get some sort of tuition rebate. And maybe just to answer that, we can do that, and we have discussed it with her before. We've been shut down. And so one of the things that probably if the strike is prolonged for a period of time, that's something that we will need student support on, that if we can mobilize students on that kind of issue, it's probably something that we would get more grounds on than if we were to try and do it by publishing in like a one-on-one meeting.
Can we do something so the professors who are trying to carry on the classes, they be present in the meeting tomorrow? So we can ask them that question that we don't have answers to.
So the professors that are planning on crossing the picket line?
No, the ones that are like trying to make the students do their homework and sort of, crossing the picket line. The ones that are specifically putting the students into this difficult situation. By supporting Pop and Dr. Pop.
Yeah, I don't know that, we don't personally actually know the names of any of the professors that have done these kinds of things. When we met with Dr. Poff earlier, she said, I had 3 phone calls from professors this morning saying that they want to teach and they don't want to go on strike and all this stuff, but we're not privy to who that is. But we could definitely ask the Faculty Association administration if they can bring those people with them.
And I think it's important too that faculty that do go back to work get their regular pay, and those who stay on strike get strike pay. I think that's just an important thing to note, because the faculty are also being put in a very difficult situation where they're like, oh, you can come to work and get paid the regular amount of money, or be on strike and get strike pay.
I'm not sure if you know, but is there still like a large distance between what the professors and then want? And like, is it larger than what it was in 2008 when they went on strike?
We asked the question, they wouldn't tell us details about what was left on the table, but we asked them how significant the differences were, and they alluded to the fact that they are quite significant between the two parties, and that compared to 3 years ago, I don't believe that anyone here was on BUSU Council at the time. I started working for the Students' Union partway through the strike, but I know that, my personal opinion is that the issues that are being debated are more intense than last time. That's not to say that we're not entering into a strike being closer than we were last time. So I don't know that it necessarily can tell you how long a strike will last, but I don't know if other people have sort of inclinations about how they feel about the process, or maybe back to my original question about next week. Can we do a show of hands of how many people are planning on going to class if their classes are offered versus how many won't? So maybe who's planning on not going to class if your professor offers classes next week? Not going.
Are you including those who are going into craft cup next week?
No.
That's a difficult situation.
No, because as has been alluded, you guys aren't really given much choice. And then those that are planning on potentially going to class next week? Okay. So, yeah, that's really cool. Go ahead.
Is BUSU planning any weekend rallies? And
Yeah.
Are they, do you guys have a stand? I'm thinking you guys do stand, to be honest.
We want to talk first.
So, are we having a rally, and what is BUSU's stance?
Okay. Well, today we have a council meeting following this forum where council members will make a motion as to what our stance will be in this situation. And obviously this served a purpose for us as well, right? In making that stance. If, in fact, we do make a motion to support the faculty, and if that's what students wish, then we will definitely be holding rallies and marching with faculty, and then students can do it.
Go ahead.
I realized that the faculty and administration are the main people that are facing this situation. Would it not be possible for the students to hold our own stance? Like, I feel like we're an important part of this because we're the pressure that is forcing them to move negotiations along. So with students, like, taking, obviously, I don't know, I feel that faculty has a lot of important things to discuss there, and I, feel that way. But as students, if we are standing together for our own cause of receiving our education paid for, is there another way other than walking on the picket line for the students?
So the question is, with faculty and administration at the negotiating table and frankly students' voices being left out of the conversation, is there a way for students to publicly declare something like some sort of stance on the issue and be mobilized on that stance?
I think that's a really legitimate question and one that's definitely been thought about very diligently from us as a student union as well, and what that stance would be. I think that there are problems in making, this is a difficult question to answer. If we take a stance as students, which is separate from the administration and the faculty, and we say, we just want to get back to class, we're still being toyed around. What does that mean, right? Yes, we want to get back to class. We want a fair resolution, and something that we've been calling for 2 weeks. And I'm afraid that if we band together and say that, then people are going to be like, yeah, but there's 2 parties at the table, and the decision comes down to them making, and so the administration can say, yeah, you want a resolution, then do you see what I'm saying? It's just, I don't know if it makes enough of a stance to actually place enough pressure on collective negotiations.
At the same time, the other sort of flip side of that is last time during the strike, BUSU as an organization took a stance to support the Faculty Association, and then resulting after that was that BUSU and students held a rally and a march. It was called a Rally for a Resolution, but the undertone was that BUSU at the time did support the faculty and its initiatives, and so it was not only students saying we need a resolution, we want to get back to class, all those kinds of things. At the same time, it was a show of solidarity for the faculty, and so when BUSU meets today and makes some sort of judgment call on how they feel that we should stand on the issues, then the other thing that we can do is we can always hold a special general meeting of BUSU members, so all students, in which case students can come together in a big group like this and actually make a motion as a student population on one side or another. And likewise, we could do that as well for next week. We could hold a meeting and say, you know what, we don't want to cross the picket line and we don't want to feel guilty for that. And so as students, you can make the decision to say, we're not going to cross the picket line, and that will be the stance that BUSU and its students takes. And then you can move forward in that fashion. So essentially, as students, you have the ability to do whatever you want, right? If that's something that people want, then sort of talk to us afterwards, and we'll try and organize some sort of AGM if you think that that's what other students want as well.
I don't know if we're legally allowed to do this, but I was just wondering if we could have a rally to actually get our tuition back for the days that we are missing while this is all going on.
Yeah, you can hold a rally about anything. You can. The question is, can you hold a rally calling on the university administration to refund some tuition? And the answer is yes, you can hold a rally for anything. Go ahead. Did the faculty cross the picket line last time around? Or some of them?
No, in 2008, there was a lockout in place as soon as the strike was called. Faculty were actually uniformly prevented from coming onto campus. And in a lot of ways, it seems like sort of a heavy-handed gesture by the administration to do that, but in fact, it actually simplified things a great deal for students, because they knew that as long as there wasn't a fair deal that was reached, classes weren't happening, assignments weren't getting handed in. There was clarity in that, and students could plan their lives accordingly. in this situation right now, there is no clarity. It's a very difficult situation to navigate. It's difficult for us. It's difficult for everyone here. It's difficult for all students. And so there is a very, very distinct difference between this situation and the one in 2008. We've made our opinion very clear a number of times to the administration, and I think Deanna's wanting to say something.
Maybe the third option, strike, lockout, or canceling classes, is something that we haven't, like, that terminology has not been used. Obviously, the university president has the authority to cancel classes as she sees fit. And so maybe the third option for her, if students don't feel comfortable crossing the picket line and worry about the consequences of doing that, is that she doesn't have to do a lockout. She could simply cancel classes.
I have more of a concern than a question. I, for one, am fully behind the professors, and the only worry for me is if we as a students' union support them. I'm planning on going to graduate school. Now, the graduate school, the administration is the one that accepts you. We are now going to be known as the university that's gone on strike 2 times in 3 years, and if we as a student union back up the professors, will we be frowned upon when we apply for graduate school? Will they look at us and say they're from Brandon University, they fully supported the profs, let's not have them? Would that be something?
In the event that BUSU supports the Faculty Association, and as members of BUSU, like students that are members of BUSU, would that jeopardize your ability to get accepted to grad school or any other programs when people look at your admissions application and see that you are a Brandon University student?
Yeah.
I think that it would be very difficult to pinpoint students that are applying to graduate schools in regards to just coming from this institution, and I think that would be absolutely ridiculous if we got refused to go to graduate school because we came from Brandon University where students supported strike action. I don't think that's happened in the past. As we said, BUSU did support faculty class in 2008, and Jonathan didn't get rejected from grad school.
He rejected them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think you're going to receive any kind of punishment for this at all. For one thing, it's not actually the administration that accepts you into master's. There's councils and committees that are put together, and almost all of them, if not all of them, will include a majority of faculty members. They also include students. So whether or not you support a strike or not shouldn't play at all into your future as an academic. I mean, one of the things that we prize most in academia is freedom of speech and of expression. And I mean, that would be clear violation of that, and I would be very, very surprised and disheartened if that was the case.
Other questions or comments?
How much notice will we have before all classes resume?
How much notice before classes resume?
I believe last time we were told at 8 p.m. at night, and we were expected to be at class the next morning. So there is no standard time as to when, or we're not supposed to get 24 hours or anything like that, or a deadline as we did with the strike. So I would just suggest to keep an eye on your campus wide emails, granted that they get to you, as well as the Facebook group. And if any of you are not members of our Facebook group, I would strongly suggest adding yourselves, because that's where a lot of the discussion is happening, and a lot of information is getting out to students quickly on there.
Other questions?
In the event the strike is ongoing, how long does it go on for before the term is over?
How long does a strike have to last before you lose a term?
Well, this is a question that we asked within the last couple of weeks, and the administration has made it very clear that they have several contingency plans so that students don't compromise their semester. And in the last 30 years of collective bargaining, students have never lost a semester due to a strike or lockout.
I know you can't give an absolute answer, but would it be fair to say that last time it was starting to get kind of close? Or at least before they had to do something fairly extreme like lengthen the term?
last time, was it getting close to extending the term or taking some sort of contingency action?
The administration made it clear that last time in 2008, they actually didn't have contingency plans in place before going into strike, or a strike and lockout situation. This time they do. So although it did go 17 days in 2008, I was a student then, lots of you I'm sure were, we didn't have our semester compromised, and I hope that that's not the case, and they've ensured that it won't be the case this year.
And perhaps the fact that the administration has not said, if it lasts this number of days, we extend the term, if it lasts this number of days, we cancel the term. Like, those kinds of guidelines have not been outlined, and perhaps at the student forum tomorrow, in which Dr. Poff is potentially in attendance, that is something you guys should definitely ask, because we continue to not get answers.
Yeah, a lot of us, either live out of town or have full-time jobs. We like to make a lot of money here. Just responding to David's question there, would we prefer to call upon the admin at faculty to say, hey, we have to have at least 24 hours?
Can we call upon the faculty and the administration to at least give us 24 hours notice in the event that we're going back to school, so that if people are working part-time and they have scheduled shifts, they have time to switch their lives back to school?
Yeah, well, people who actually reside now, let's say.
Yeah.
I think that's completely fair and something that we will definitely request from both parties. Yeah,
sounds fair.
Thanks, Chris.
Other questions? Okay. Oh.
Would there be a forum scheduled for the education students before next Monday so that we know for sure that we won't penalize the going student teams?
Yeah. Can we hold a forum before next week so that education students will know if they're not going to be penalized if they don't go, right? So that's essentially if we could get like the Manitoba Teacher Society or Brandon Teacher Society and the Dean and other parties involved so that we can have a forum to discuss that. I think that's probably a fair goal to have, is to have it done this week.
Because I want to know if I can graduate, if I can be teaching or not.
Valid concern. Yeah. Okay. So if there's no other questions, then perhaps we'll adjourn this at this moment. If there are...
I have one more question, actually. As like a BUSU council person, I kind of obviously have gotten like mixed as how people feel in here. So I just want to know, like, can we do another show of hands, how you guys think I should vote later in the council meeting if we should support faculty or not? Is that an absurd question? Will you guys do that?
If they don't want to, they can just not vote.
That's cool.
That works. Okay, so all those that are in support of the administration.
Oh wait.
Those that are in support of the faculty.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are you planning to go for a demonstration to support the faculty and against the administration?
Are we going to hold a demonstration for the faculty and against the administration? Probably the answer to that is that BUSU, until this forum is done, has not yet taken a stance. However, if students that are here support the faculty and want to go and take a couple of laps around the campus with faculty as an early sign of support, we can collectively do that today.
Right now.
Right now.
Yeah.
So, maybe in closing, I'll just ask if our executive has anything they want to add before we go.
You guys rock.
Okay, and so tomorrow at noon we will have another forum in which the faculty will be here and hopefully the administration. For the other forum requests, we will diligently work on them and we will continue to update you the best we can through email and Facebook. And for all those